So the next session is the Purushottam Yoga Factory. This is, Krishna will give us a summary of Vedanta Sutra now. He has explained just, I'm the goal of the Vedas, I'm the compiler of Vedanta. But what is this Vedanta? He will summarize it in 3 verses here. That he will first tell us, because this is meant to understand Krishna's position and our position. So this is about this Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojan that I just explained. So in verse 16 to 18, he will give knowledge for this Sambandha of our relationship with Krishna. And therefore, these verses 16 to 18, they are referred to as the Trisloka Gita. So we had heard Krishna is the knower of Vedanta. Krishna is the compiler of Vedanta. So in these 3 verses, that it assists the soul in how to transcend this material existence by summarizing the Vedas. And summarizing the Vedas, the summary is a Vedanta. And if Vedanta is aphorism, it's very cryptic. That I cannot understand it without a commentary. But the natural commentary is Srimad Bhagavatam. Explains the Vedanta in its real light and very systematic. The first verse of Vedanta Sutta is Atato Brahma Jihnas. No, the first verse, that's the 5th. The first verse is Janmadi Asya. The absolute truth is the source of everything. Janmadi Asya. And what is this Janmadi Asya? First verse of the Bhagavatam explains, Janmadi Asya yatam vaya pitayatas satis abhishya sparatin brahmaridaya adhikaviye muyanti atsurya, and so on. It explains how Krishna is the source of everything. Then verse 19 will be about Abhideya Gyan. Abhideya Gyan means the process how to attain liberation and get out of this material world, the process of attainment. And what is to be attained is verse 20, Prayojan, the goal. So this is Trisloka Gita, that summary of Vedanta, which will be now looked at in more detail. Because why are we in material existence? It's due to our weakness of heart. We have this desire to control material nature, and this desire to control material nature leads to attachment and the development of a sense of proprietorship. So we have heard the first verses of this chapter describing the process how to free us from this banyan tree. How to free ourselves from this weakness of heart. And the rest of the chapter is Purushottam Yoga. Krishna explains gradually. We will start with looking at verse 16. Share. Pamima Purusha Loke Kshara Chakshari Vacha Kshara Sarvani Bhutani Kutasto Kshara Uchate. There are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is infallible. So Krishna divides here the living entities in two classes, the fallible and the infallible. When they are coming in contact with the material nature, they are called Jiva Bhuta. That where we see Kshara Sarvani Bhutani. These Jiva Bhuta are fallible. But those who are in oneness with Krishna are called infallible. They don't get karma, material bodies, and so on. Oneness does not mean that they don't have any individuality anymore. No, it means there's no disunity. They agree to abide by Krishna's will. That they are all agreeable to the purpose of the creation. Of course, in the spiritual world, there is no such thing of creation, Srila Prabhupada says. But since the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in Vedanta Sutta, is the source of all emanations, that conception is explained. So as long as we are conditioned that we change body, one body after another, and it appears the living entity changes, but it does not. But in the spiritual world, the body is not made of matter. There is no change. In the material world, the living entity undergoes 6 changes: birth, growth, duration, reproduction, dwindling, vanishing. These are the changes of the material body. But in the spiritual body does not change. There is no old age, there is no birth, there is no death. So those who change their bodies are fallible. In the spiritual world, they are always liberated and agree to serve Krishna. So that is the difference, that two kinds of living entities are described here. Let's see for the slides. That's the next 15, 8:15. We have to start the slideshow. It's here. Now we have to share again. It's here. It's our chapter. So I read the introduction. After concluding that he is the goal of the Vedas and the compiler of Vedanta, the Lord summarized the Vedanta, which conclusively establishes his position as supreme. So in these verses, I repeat again, Krishna gives knowledge of our relationship to Krishna, Sambandha Gyan. It's called the Trisloka Gita. It's called Trisloka, but yeah, it are factually 5 verses. That once 16, 18 is considered the first sloka. The second is Abhidbeya Gyan, the process of attainment. Verse 20, Prayojan, the goal. So this is a summary of Vedanta. which we will discuss. We are now the first verse, fallible and infallible. That is the first. That's we heard in this verse. Yeah. And this is the overview, which I already discussed. That yes, 16. The problems of material existence, weakness of heart, we discussed also. That is 16. The verse we just read. The living entities in the material world are fallible, whereas those in the spiritual world are infallible. Because one in purpose with the Supreme Lord. Oneness does not mean that they have no individuality, but that there is no this unity. No, verse 17. Uttama Pushastvanya Parametme Yudarita Ilokatrayam Avishya Vibhaktavya Ishvara. Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them. So this, here we have a description of Paramatma in 17. It is clearly stated above that the innumerable living entities, some of whom are conditioned and some are liberated, above them there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma. That Nityo Nityananam, Chetana Chetananam. The purport is that among all living entities, both conditioned and liberated, there is one Supreme Personality of Godhead who maintains them and gives them all full facility of enjoyment according to different work. So above the liberated and the conditioned soul, the Lord, it says, maintains them and gives them facility. So also in the spiritual world, it means in the material world, one is conditioned by the three modes. In the spiritual world, one is under the influence of Krishna's spiritual energy and is maintained by that spiritual energy. So that is to be understood. We are always under control of Krishna. In the material world or the spiritual world. Of course, in the spiritual world, we have freedom. Here we have only a little freedom. Otherwise, conditioned by the modes that. So that is verse 17. That it says, in the material world, Paramatma maintains all living entities. Yeah. That is a fact. But now in 18, that's interesting. That 18, Krishna will make it very clear. Yasmakshamatito ham akshara apisottama. Atasmi loke vedesha pratita purushottama. Because I'm transcendental beyond the fallible and infallible, because I'm the greatest, I'm celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as the Supreme Person. So he's beyond the fallible and infallible. So that means Krishna says here, no one can excel me, surpass me, not the conditioned, not the liberated soul. So this makes it very clear, Srila Prabhupada writes. The Supreme Lord is an individual, and we are an individual. But he is the Supreme individual who maintains all the others. So these are the first 3 verses, which is knowledge required to re-establish our relationship with Krishna. You cannot establish your relationship with Krishna if you don't know that we are conditioned and that we can become liberated, but that above there is Krishna. Krishna decides whether we will become liberated or not. And he reciprocates me with our desires in this regard. So Krishna is above all as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who expands himself in illuminating Brahma-Jyoti, and localized Paramatma. So text 18, text 19 will inform us about this Abhideya Jnana. Okay, to the Gita. 19. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Moment, Yomami Vamsav Samudo, Shanati Purushottama, Sarvavid Bachati Mam, Sarva Bhavena Bharata. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is a knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, or son of Bharat. So that's the result of this knowledge. If you really realize this knowledge, you will serve Krishna. That's the result. The result, Krishna, Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport. Krishna clearly explains that anyone who knows Lord Krishna to be the Supreme Person is actually the knower of everything. How is he then the knower of everything? Because he knows the source of everything. So he's the perfect knower, because without wasting his valuable time, he engages directly in Krishna consciousness. The devotional service of the Lord, he goes directly to the root. So we must hear this knowledge, Srila Prabhupada said, this hearing of the Shruti. Shruti means that which ought to be known by our reception. So we can get this knowledge from Krishna here in Bhagavad Gita, or from his representatives who repeat his words. But that hearing must have a quality, Srila Prabhupada says. Not just hearing like the horse and dogs. One must be able to understand from the authorities. So one must inquire to elicit a deeper understanding of the subject matter. It is not that one should simply speculate academically. One should be submissively hear from Bhagavad Gita that these living entities are always subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And one who is able to understand this according to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, see Krishna, knows the purpose of the Vedas, and no one else knows the purpose of the Vedas. But if anyone, after speculating for hundreds of thousands of lives, does not come to the point of that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that one has to surrender to him, all his speculation for so many years of lives are useless, waste of time, Srila Prabhupada. This is this Abhideya. So understanding Lord Krishna's supreme position is the topmost platform of knowledge. Those in full knowledge have devotional service as their supreme occupation. But if a person does not accept devotional service, then his knowledge has no value, because knowledge theoretically has no value unless it is brought into practice. And that's the practice, the Abhideya. There is no, if it doesn't lead to Abhideya, then one's knowledge is not complete. It's not really understood. So knowledge, yes. So it means we have to overcome our weakness of heart. That's the last verse. We will read it first. Iti guyatanam shastram idam uktam mayanagam evam bhutva buddhimansya kritakritya sabharata. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic literature, sinless one. It is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. That's this Prayojan. So Krishna tells us here, this is the substance of all knowledge, of all the scriptures. And one should understand it as it has been presented here by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if one understands this philosophy, then one engages in pure devotional service, free from contamination from the modes of nature. So devotional service in itself is the process of understanding. We heard in chapter 13, 20 items of knowledge, and 2 were most important: accepting a bona fide spiritual master and engage in devotional service. And it is said, by engagement in devotional service, all the other qualities develop. So devotional service helps us to understand this deeper understanding. The Dami Buddhi Yogantam, Krishna gives realization to the heart, Tesham Evan Kampatam, and so on. So devotional service takes place within the spiritual energy of the Lord. It's different from material activities. So unless one is free from all reactions, it is very difficult to understand Krishna. So to understand Krishna, one must be pure in heart, anaga, free from all sinful taints or reactions. So one must surmount this weakness of heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. So the first fall down is caused by the desire to lord over material nature. How did we come from the spiritual world? The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. How did this material desire develop? Some curiosity. How would it be to be Krishna for a moment? Who knows? Don't try to find it out, Krishna says. We are Nitya Baddhas. Nitya Baddha means we cannot trace back how we became conditioned. Don't try it. Yeah, we'll never know. The second weakness of heart is that one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature. First, one desires it, and then one wants more and more and more. That all the problems of material existence come from that. What's the problem? It's explained here. That in this chapter, the first 5 verses have described the process to how to extract us from this banyan tree of material existence, from this weakness of heart, and the rest is Purushottam Yoga, knowledge of the Supreme Lord about our relationship and the goal. So that is chapter 15, that just the last verse summary. One who knows that Krishna as the Supreme search him with devotion, which surrounds both wisdom and perfection. Good. Now I would like to go, because just a moment. Okay, now it will appear in my sharing. I want to read together with you a few quotes of Srila Prabhupada from this chapter. We went to chapter 15, and we have long quotes here, but we will read only a few short ones. How does Supersoul make you forget? Someone wants to read it?
Is it possible?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. The Supersoul is like an expert director of a play. An expert director makes the actor forget his real identity to enter the part he is playing. The more he forgets, the better he plays. So, Supersoul makes us forget our real identity to become these different material designations or bodies. We have forgotten our relationship with the Supreme Lord. We wanted to enjoy the material world, so we forget completely that I am spirit soul. I am not the body. Actually, I can't enjoy. So that forgetfulness is also due to the spirit super soul. He is giving us full chance. But he advises that do not become entangled in these material activities. Therefore, his instruction is Sarva Dharma Parityajya Mamakum Sharanam Raja. That is his instructions. But we do not want that. We want to forget and entangle ourselves in these material activities. Therefore, Krishna, by the agency of his Maya, illusory energy, helps us in forget. But if we want to revive our original consciousness, then Krishna also help us. Buddhi yogam dadamitam. That is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. We are at liberty to make our choice. If we want to enjoy this material world, Krishna will provide all facilities we can enjoy. But Krishna says that you will never be happy, never be happy. You will simply be more entangled.
Yes, so it's up to us. If we want to enjoy this material world, Krishna will help us to get more and more entangled in illusion. And if we want to get out of it, Krishna will give us realizations within the heart and will help us. So it depends on us here. That Krishna makes us forget him if we want to enjoy the material world, and makes us remember when we want to revive our original consciousness. That I will read the next one. The Supreme Personality of Godhead causes the asuras to forget him and the devotees to remember him. One who wants to continue to forget the Lord is helped by the Lord to forget him birth after birth, but one who remembers him by dint of association with a devotee of the Lord is helped to remember him more and more. Thus the conditioned soul can ultimately go back home, back to Godhead. Yeah. Can someone read the next one? Whatever the living entity desires.
Whatever a living entity desires, however insignificant he may be, is noted by the Lord, who gives him a chance to fulfill his desires. If the desires of the non-devotee are fulfilled, why not those of the devotee? Thus, whenever one fully surrenders unto the Supreme Lord, one finds that he is sitting within one's heart. He can give us direction as to how to get out of danger or how to approach him in devotional service. A pure devotee simply wants to engage in the service of the Lord without material desire. And if he wants this within the core of his heart, where the Lord is situated, and if he is without ulterior motive, why should the Lord not understand? If a sincere devotee renders service to the Lord or to the Archer Vigraha, the form of the Lord, all his activities prove successful because the Lord is present within his heart in the same sincerity.
Thank you.
Continue. Oh.
Thank you. But it is important that so Krishna makes us forget or make us remember according to our as reciprocation with our desire factor. That if we want to remember him, Krishna will help us to become Krishna conscious. So further, I will read the last quote here. How the Vedas take sages to Krishna. The lotus feet of the Lord are by themselves the shelter of all places of pilgrimage. The great clear-minded sages, carried by the wings of the Vedas, always search after the nest of your lotus-like face. Some of them surrender to your lotus feet at every step by taking shelter of the best of the rivers, the Ganges, which can deliver fine from all sinful reactions. The Paramahamsas are compared to royal swans who make their nest on the petals of the lotus flower. The Lord's transcendental bodily parts are always compared to the lotus flower, because in the material world, the lotus flower is the last word in beauty. The most beautiful thing in the world are the Vedas or the Bhagavad Gita, because therein knowledge is imparted by the personality of God himself. The Paramahamsa makes his nest in the lotus-like face of the Lord and always seeks shelter at his lotus feet, which are reached by the wings of the Vedic wisdom. Since the Lord is the original source of all emanations, intelligent persons enlightened by the Vedic knowledge seek the shelter of the Lord, just as birds who leave the nest search out the nest again to take complete rest. All Vedic knowledge is meant for understanding the Supreme Lord. stated by Lord in Bhagavad Gita, Vadasya Sarvarame Vedya, intelligent persons were like swans take shelter of the Lord, by all means, and do not hover on the mental plane by fruitlessly speculating on different philosophies. The Lord is so kind that he has spread the river Ganges throughout the universe, so that by taking a bath in that holy river, everyone can be released from the reactions of sins, which occur at every step. There are many rivers in the world that are able to evoke one's senses of God consciousness simply by bathing in them, and the river Ganges is the chief amongst them. In India, there are 5 sacred rivers, but the Ganges is the most sacred. The river Ganges and the Bhagavad Gita are the chief sources of transcendental happiness for mankind, and intelligent persons can take shelter of them to go back home, back to Godhead. Even Shripad Shankaracharya recommends that a little knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita and the drinking of the little quantities of Ganges water can save one from the punishment of Yamaraj. That very strong statement. That now we go back first to this Vedanta Sutra. So these 3 things, that 3 conclusions of the Vedanta. So there are the fallible and infallible living entity, and then there is Paramatma, who maintains the 3 worlds. And then there is Purushottam, is beyond the infallible and infallible, and is the source of Brahman and Paramatma, is the greatest, is one in knowledge. One who has knowledge of him, knows everything, engages in devotional service, which is Abhideya, and attains perfection, which is Prayojan. So this is the purpose of the Vedas, is to know Krishna, engage in devotional service, and attain perfection. Now I have a question to you. This knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, when you came in contact with this knowledge, how did it influence your life? Anyone wants to share?
Manas, could you repeat one more time the question, please? The
question is just that when you came in contact with this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, how did this influence your life? How did it change your life? What did you change?
I can say one thing.
Yes,
one of the sloka says, Mamai Vangsho Jivaloke. So means we are all living entity is the part of Krishna. So that means whatever parents we having different life after life, actually those are just material. But Krishna is our absolute father. Mm-hmm. So if I am a lost child, and as a child, I don't have no quality to protect myself. So I always surrender to Krishna. So that makes me.
Yeah, then you take always note of Krishna voice. Thank you.
I'll just go for a second. My daughter calling me. I'll come back. Okay.
Okay. Someone else want to share? Good, then we will pause till 11:45. and then discuss the first part of the 16th chapter of the next chapter. Thank you very much. So we pause for a bit more than 50 minutes. Thank you.